Let's talk about world building for just a minute, because
Sure.
I think this is something that Star Wars is suffering from and has been ever since the prequels. A lot of things that happen in the prequels that set up some of the world building, especially regarding the Jedi and their number and their relationship with the Sith and their number and the way they act and the way they behave. That's not what was set up in the prequels is not anything that I ever would have thought was the case after having watched the original trilogy. Now, of course, that's on George Lucas, so it's his, but he set up some things in there that have had ramifications throughout all of the rest of it, and including all the other films and all these things about how this is supposed to be set up, including like, hey, there are only 2 Sith, so you don't have a more dark Jedi. All of the Jedi are all of the Force users. We got the Jedi, and then we've only got 2 of the Sith. We don't have what people would call like a gray Jedi or things like that. And by the way, the Jedi are these stoic monastic people, which, like I said, maybe that was his vision from the original trilogy, but it's not something that I was always surprised by that, But it seems to me that the world building has suffered because of that inclusion, instead of being able to allow the Jedi and the Sith to be more organic.
So if I were in charge of Lucasfilm, which I'm not, I would go back and explore the formation of the Sith before the Rule of 2. I think it would be great Star Wars to show the rise of orders of moral orders of Force users. I would love to see the first Force users start to take form. I would love to see the first people who learned to use the Force and used it for evil, and how they would maybe take over planets and things like that, with armies of these people, good, at varying levels, and then show the people who tried to oppose them and how they became the Jedi Order, and how you could do some amazing things by resetting the board, by going back however many years it was when the Sith and the Jedi first formed up. You have real conflict there. So yeah, you're right. The Rule of 2 certainly confined the dark side. You got the impression that it forced those 2 to be really good and really manipulative if they were going to survive in a world where the Jedi are so numerous.
Well, and then you also have the elimination of the Jedi. So you were supposed to, Darth Vader was supposed to extinguish the Jedi, and there weren't very many of them. But in order to continue all of the storytelling after Return of the Jedi, we only continue to multiply the number of Force users or ex-Jedi or what that happen to have slipped through. And it's like, okay, totally. Everybody ends up slipping through. And so to me, that loses a lot of the gravitas there.
Totally. In fact, I think Ahsoka Episode 1 really weakens the Jedi for the Force altogether, because, like you said, you went from a more Sith versus Jedi. It was a controlled power. Force users were found and educated. And now with the introduction of Balon and Hatai, whatever, you've got another group of these not Jedi, not Sith, from what I could tell, because he says they pay me well. So they're mercenary Force users, ex-Jedi. Ahsoka's an ex-Jedi. So now you've got, and they keep using the term Jedi. And I'm like, but none of these people are Jedis. Like, if you like Jedi so much, make them a Jedi. Do something with Jedis then. But like, even the apprenticeship, like, why not have a whole classroom of people? Like, if there's no Jedi Order, you do not have to follow any of their protocols. And why would you if you don't believe in the Jedi? If you think this is a bad order and of no value, then why are you following in their footsteps on all of their protocols, including the apprenticeship? Because they're in Ahsoka, the live action show, they really they show that Ahsoka was training Sabine, and this didn't go very well. But Sabine has no abilities with the Force in Ahsoka. She never uses like telekinesis or anything. She simply knows how to use a lightsaber, and not very well, as we find out at the end of Episode 1. So, but I agree with you. I think the world building has gotten so sideways that it's so loose that I can't really follow any of it anymore. It seems to be just Force users, generic, far more generic, and generic rebels. The rebel, the New Republic. I don't know.
It's loose, so not only it can't be followed, but also I care less. And why are the Jedi so stoic? Why do they all have to be so stoic? It ends up giving them all the same kind of personality. And it's Ahsoka's got the same thing here. And I realize, okay, with like jaded warrior and all that kind of thing. But if every Jedi has to be monk-like and stoic, it hurts. It hurts to have now. Of course, it also hurts that we decide to have everybody else like stoic, as well.
Oh, yeah, that's bad in this.
It is, but like that hurts when you're like, what is a characteristic Jedi? Oh, they can't have emotions for some weird reason. So that means they've all got to be, emotionless and which sometimes is like really weird and almost cruel. But
Yeah.
You've got that, and they all have to be that way, which gives you a lack of variety in your Jedi. And also from the world building perspective, even their clothing. That's all the same when they're uniformed. I never would have thought that there was like a Jedi uniform and it was based on what Obi-Wan Kenobi was wearing in the original movie.
It's all based on that.
It hurts. And you can even see that in cosplay. You see some people do Jedi, but if you want something that's uniformed, there are things that are uniformed in Star Wars, like the people who do the Stormtrooper cosplay, they're uniformed. Or if you want to do the Rebel Troopers, they're uniformed. But one of the much more interesting things that you see people cosplay and get really involved with are the Mandalorian, because even though they have a look,
you can modify it.
And you see the guys who are doing the Mandalorian cosplay, and they've got very exacting standards on like the width of the helmet and stuff like that. So you instantly recognize the person as Mandalorian, but you've got all this variety you can have. That's what the Jedi should have had. You should have had.
Funny enough, even the clones started with just the white clone trooper. In the Clone Wars animated series, I even showed you the Ahsoka helmet. They modified their helmets all the time. There are so many clone uniforms and looks. And that variety, there seems to be an endless appetite for it. I know people that have collected every version of the clones. I have a lot of them. But I guess I haven't gone all in, but I do like all those different modifications of the Clone Warriors. And you just said the Mandalorians have that modification ability. The Jedi seem to be, what's weird is the Jedi seem to be the brown robes with the tannish, interior robe. Anakin had the dark black robe, or like the black modification.
And that's never brought up.
And he's the only one.
You're the only one who, just flaunts the dress code. Like, come on, Anakin.
In the animated series, Obi-Wan has clone trooper armor on his sleeves. He's actually, and his knees. Obi-Wan looks pretty cool. It's actually one of my favorite Obi-Wan Kenobi looks. Is Clone Wars Obi-Wan from the animated series. He has his light brown robe. It's actually a tunic. It's a light brown tunic. And then he has clone trooper armor from his shoulders to his wrists. And he has clone trooper armor on his shins and knees. And then, the beard and the short hair. He's really awesome in the Clone Wars. It's my favorite look for him.
Well, and also if things like the Force can run strong in your family, if the Force is something that runs in families, then every time you get a Force user, taking them out of the gene pool and putting them into a monastic order doesn't exactly create new Force users. I mean, you would think our order is dwindling. Well, gee, I wonder why. Maybe somebody needs to read a book of genetics in that giant library of yours and figure out that maybe having husbands and wives and some children would help out the number of Force users.
Can you picture a Jedi? What's this book? Biology? Human sexuality?
When he talks about the Force runs strong in my family, I never thought that you were supposed to be celibate as a Jedi. Like that, I don't know where
they call it the Skywalker saga, which implies a lineage, a bloodline. In fact, so yeah. I mean, but what I'm saying is, if you're going to continue the story, you have the chance as the writer to address those flaws. And you could have done all of that in the sequel trilogy. I would have made Leia the Supreme Chancellor, not a general. She wasn't much of a general, in my opinion. They never showed her tactically leading armies or doing anything that a general would do.